Hello, everyone, and welcome to the June National NBS Pilot Monthly Webinar. I just want to apologize for everybody for the mishap with the Zoom meeting information. We're not sure what happened with last meeting, why people couldn't register and attend the meeting, so we ended up having to post another Zoom link, which I have in my slide, and we've sent out via email, so hopefully you've got it. If you guys have any issues attending the meeting, please reach out to myself or also with Stephanie Barnes, who has sent the meeting invitation out. So we can go ahead and get started. These meetings are open discussion. Feel free to, you can keep yourself muted, but feel free to unmute yourself if you have a comment that you would like to make. I just want to remind everybody that these sessions are recorded and they are available on the NBS TRN YouTube channel. So we are going to continue with our normal standing agenda where we have introductions, and then we'll get updates from the teams that have active or completed pilot studies. We'll then hear from other states and then have some updates from APHL as well as NBS TRN. First of all, I just want to say if we have anybody new joining the call today.
Hello, everyone. So my name is May. I'll turn on my camera. I am a new hire at NBS TRN, and I'll be working under Dr. Taylor. I'm really looking forward to meeting everyone. So.
Thanks, May. Yeah, May's just joined our team this month, and she's our new research associate. So we are happy to have her, and she'll be helping me out. So thank you for joining, May. Anybody else new to the call? Okay, we're going to keep going with our normal standing agenda. I just want to add that some of the conditions that we've been discussing, we probably will be rotating them off in future calls, but we'll continue with them this time around. So kindly, Dr. Michelle Kajana from New York has sent me the update in advance for the New York state. I believe there was not many updates to last May, but if anybody wants to make any comments about anything new, it looks like the main changes was Pompe disease, and then maybe one more for SMA. Is that correct?
Yes, the Pompe is a carrier, so.
And the Pompe is a carrier.
Plus pseudodeficiency on the other allele.
Okay, and it's a pseudodeficiency on the other allele. Okay. Yeah, I know last time we kind of talked about MPS 1, and we hit on that for a while since you guys haven't gotten any. You've been screening for that for a while. It was interesting that but you are identifying some pseudodeficiency alleles or maybe a pseudodeficiency combined with some other polymorphisms, but haven't detected any cases yet.
That's right.
Yeah. And then the SMA incidence is pretty much going on strong, 1 or 2 each month, it seems like.
Yep, the incidence hasn't really changed, so.
Mm-hmm. And it's the distribution between the copy numbers still also looks pretty what is to be expected. We're seeing a lot of 2s and 3s, and you are seeing a couple 5s. So can you remind us, Michelle, are you guys doing the copy number in-house?
Yes.
Your assay can detect 5 or more copies.
We do digital drop PCR to detect the 5 copies. So previously we were doing qPCR, and we can only do 4 or more, but the digital allows us to go to 5.
Great, great.
And we do that, at the referral time. We don't send it out or do it after the referral.
Okay, okay. Does anybody have any updates for Michelle as far as the data from the New York team? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next site, which is North Carolina and the DMD pilot. I believe I saw Kate is on today. Are you going to be providing the update today, Kate?
Yep, I'm here.
All right, welcome.
Hi, everybody. So as of now, we have screened 10,654 newborns for DMD with the CKMM assay from PerkinElmer. We've had 71 screen positive, so we use a single cutoff. And recently we adjusted it to reduce some of the false positives. We've had 60 parents consenting to next generation sequencing, and 59 have been completed. And then we've had 54 consenting to latent total CK, that's which is just not a CKMM test, but total CK that's done at 1 month of age or later. We've had 54 consenting to that. Most of them were in the normal range. We've had one, maybe another one recently that were slightly elevated, but majority were negative. And we've had some QNSs due to the volume that's required for the test. So we've been having some conversations about doing this better, because it's really hard to get that volume from our heel stick for the total CK. And so from the sequencing, most of them were negative. We've had one with DMD, pathogenic variant in DMD, one with pathogenic variant in CLCN1, which is an autosomal dominant conditions, myotonia congenita. And then we've had the remaining, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 had a pathogenic variant in other genes on the panel. So we have 80 plus genes on the sequencing panel, and those were all heterozygous autosomal recessive or expected autosomal recessive phenotypes. So all of those were carriers.
And Kate, last time when Beth did the report out, she mentioned the latest 2 cases which seem to have extremely elevated CKMM. Yeah. Could you provide, do you have an estimate of what your range is for your screen positive cases are in general?
Are you asking about the cutoff, or what kind of range are you?
So
sure.
Yeah, so well, yeah, do you have a cutoff? So your DMD case and your CLCN1, the extremely high.
Oh,
AMM.
so DMD that was over 8,000, which is the limit of the assay. The CLCN1 was not. That was lower, and I don't have the number right now. But the latest 2 cases that I think that's the ones that Beth mentioned, one was over 8,000, and that one was negative on sequencing.
Okay.
So they looked like a carrier for a pathogenic variant in another gene, but the birth was extremely traumatic. And then the other one I believe she mentioned was moderately elevated. I mean, above most of our even above our false positives. And that was a female, and that one I believe was a QNS for the total CK, which is very unfortunate. And the sequencing panel, I want to say, was negative. But if Beth said something about it, she probably has better memory about these specific results from the sequencing. Trying to see
Yeah, last case, it was the one that was over 80,000.
Yeah, so I see it.
Pending, so we didn't have the diagnostics on that yet, so.
So
Yeah. Go ahead.
This is Debbie Friedenberg, Texas, and I do have a question in terms of your the ones you identified that were heterozygotes. Do you follow serial CKs? Are those dropping with time in those kids, or do you just not follow those?
So we do the latent CK if we can, and all of the latent CKs were negative except for one, now maybe two, that were teeny bit elevated over the LabCorp cutoffs. So they all drop. And we've been looking at this in several ways. So our research study doesn't have a mechanism to request repeat dry blood spots through the state for repeat testing. So that's why we do these latent CK. It has to do with permissions. But we've looked at specimens from babies that already had repeat specimens at the state, the screen positives as well as the negatives. And we see a clear trend of any of our positives or negatives dropping with time. So to answer your question, for the carriers, the ones that we were able to do the latent CK, it was much lower. They dropped, all of them. And unfortunately, the family with the one baby that was identified with a pathogenic variant in DMD, they did not consent to the latent test. So we didn't get a repeat CK result for that baby.
Thank you.
And last time, I think Lisa gave an update for MPS 2, and she said they were projecting sometime this summer, possibly June, starting MPS 2. Do you have any updates on where you guys stand for that?
Yeah,
Start, we won't be mad.
it's not gonna be June. I know that. So the not surprisingly, the slowest thing is the IRB and DOA MTA documentation with the state. So we need to have a data use agreement and material transfer agreement in place with the state, and that couldn't be started until we had the IRB approval. So it's all dependent on each other. And so we're waiting for the last couple of signatures on the DOA MTA to do the population study for the validation. So we are running the validation right now. And so our precision is done and things like that, but we do need to get access to the state specimens for this particular study to finalize the validation. So that's going to happen hopefully this month. So yeah, we all are very excited to get to the end of it and to launch, but unfortunately it's not going to be June.
So still exciting that you guys still making progress, which is great.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you guys are just, can you remind us really quickly the screening method for MPS 2, Kate?
Yeah, so it's an MSMS method with an internal enzyme control, because we have nothing else to compare it to see whether the specimen is good or not. And we're using, that's a PerkinElmer assay, and we'll run it on the Q sites.
And is that assay FDA approved or now, or are they still working on that? Is it like a custom assay?
It's still an LDT, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Kate about the DMD or MPS 2? MPS 2, I'm guessing those kids are going to be followed at UNC or multiple sites?
Correct. So we'll be for screen positives, we'll be sending a specimen to PerkinElmer for sequencing and GAGs. But we're not using it as true second tier. This is, to evaluate the utility of that. So all screen positives based only on the MSMS assay that we're running in our lab will be referred to UNC, to Dr. Munzer, and they will receive urine GAGs and blood enzyme confirmatory testing at Duke.
Great, great. Not sure if anybody else want to comment? Is anybody else on this call planning on adding MPS 2 to their state panel in the near future, or evaluating it for their state panel? I will take that as a no. And I will move on. Thanks, Kate, for the update.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer.
I'm not sure. Do we have someone from Georgia on the call today?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, great, great, great. Angela?
Yeah. Hey, Jennifer.
How are you?
So as usual, I can never remember where I left off last time. So I usually pick a random time frame and pull up a few numbers here at the last minute. So that's what I've got for everybody. I pulled up numbers starting from January 1 through the end of May. During that time, we screened, the number of samples we screened was 59079. And I have the breakdown by month, but it's, 11 pushing 12,000 every month. And during that time, we had 27 kiddos screen positive for Pompe. We have no infantile onsets diagnosed. We have 4 later onset diagnosed and 4 carriers. I can go back over that. I'm sorry, I'm not watching you. I'm looking at my spreadsheet.
That's okay. 4 late.
No infantile, 4 late, 4 carriers, and 7 that are pending their workup. We had a little rush there for a minute, but as I had to remind everybody, from the lab to the follow-up to the clinic, that happens. Kids don't like to do things on their own. They like to have friends. So they like to have positive screens together. MPS 1 and Krabbe, we still do not have any positive screens. Those Pompe and MPS 1 and Krabbe all started September. Just as a reminder to everyone.
And for Krabbe, you guys are you doing the cyclizine, you're sending that to video? Are you doing clear with that as well?
Yep, we do clear for Pompe and MPS 1 and Krabbe also, I believe. And then based on that, Pompe, there's no second tier, but MPS 1 and Krabbe both get second tier at Mayo.
Which one doesn't have second tier? Say that again.
Pompe.
Pompe, okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
The MPS 1 also, they do GAGs at Mayo.
Correct.
And that's on the dry blood spot?
Correct. Yeah, so we don't have to call anybody or get other samples or anything. We just do it on the same dried blood spot, which is great. Okay, oops. Sorry, pulling up the wrong windows here. XALD, we've had 13 screen positive and no diagnosed cases. No second tier testing, meaning no additional testing done on the dried blood spot. They go straight to follow-up, correct. So our follow-up program recommends confirmatory testing. For Pompe, we do an immediate cardiac evaluation, so CK, echo, EKG, chest x-ray. And then also enzyme and DNA as well for Pompe.
Were a lot of the 13 positives, were they females, or you had a mixture of females and males?
That's a mix.
Okay.
I can look at that in a second.
It's okay if you can't.
Yeah, I can look here in a second. SMA, I don't like to report how many, well, I guess it's really kind of 4 positive screens. It's weird the way it pulls up in my database because some of those are what we call the inconclusives, meaning the internal control isn't good either, and we just get repeat screens on those. But essentially, we've had 4 cases of SMA this year.
They were confirmed?
Mhm.
All 4, so all 4 were screen positive and all 4 were confirmed.
Correct, correct. And yeah, we really don't get like real false positives with SMA.
Mhm.
Let me see. Procedure to detect for infantile onset. Yeah, the, the cardiac evaluation. And Trisha, you're on the call. You could probably better answer Joe's question than me. Oh, you already did. Thank you. So Neobase 2 for ALD. And if
And
anybody else,
I'm guessing you have it's still in way. Any updates as far as homocystinuria, the pilot?
yes, we are still waiting on a lab director so we can even broach the topic.
Okay.
And I'm going to pull up and tell you what the breakdown is on our ALD referrals. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 females. So 2, 3, 4, 5. Ryan, those other Pompeii kids resolved as normal, just false positives.
Okay.
And Trisha already answered Joe. Thank you for jumping in on that. Trisha obviously set this all up for us, and now she's at Mayo, so she's the expert on the lab technology.
She's still helping out the Georgia group.
Yeah, she'll never get away.
So 5, I'm guessing 5 ALD males.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. And then Ryan, did you have a question? I just see copied, but maybe Trisha answered that too. Oh yeah, there was a question up higher up. The 27 Pompeii flags. What were the dispositions for the other 12?
Sorry, that's why I was kind of talking randomly. But those were the ones that just
Angela's doing a great
normal.
job of like carrying multiple conversations to keep everybody happy while we're going.
Of course, it makes me sound a little insane because I'm sort of targeting different people, but that's okay.
I'm working on 2 screens. I'm looking, if you guys see my head going, because I'm looking at 2 screens. I'm trying to monitor the chat and then also type. So I look a little crazy too.
All right, we're here together.
Ryan, did you get an answer to your question?
Good answers to the question. Happy enough. The main one, I think, for the benefit of the whole audience is just that there was something in place with the second tier testing being sort of done on a fresh sample, that there was something in place to identify suspected IOPD quickly, because even losing those weeks or whatever in scheduling could have a big negative benefit. So if you confirm that they do have a pathway in plan that just hasn't been put to action yet.
Oh, it is in action. It's not in plan. We do it. So Georgia's we do follow up a little different than a lot of other states. Our follow up is contracted out to Emory University. So I actually work for Emory, and we, excuse me. So we are in the Department of Genetics, and so our follow up algorithm isn't just to either recommend a repeat screen or farm them out to centers. We kind of are the center, and so we partner with our geneticists, but as well as other pediatric specialists. Most pediatric specialists who aren't in Augusta just about everybody is here in Atlanta and has some sort of affiliation with Emory, which makes it really convenient for us. So they help me create follow-up protocols where we can make sure that kiddos not only get retrieved by the follow-up program, but automatically get whatever confirmatory testing they may need. Of course, there's some disorders where we make special things, but that's kind of also the advantage of the way we do things. For example, SMA, during our pilot, we realized that, yeah, we could get everybody to do testing and then bring them into clinic kind of right away. But what we learned was that it was pretty easy to identify the real versus the not real cases, and no longer wanted that delay that happens by contacting pediatricians. So we just bring them right into clinic, for example. Our follow-up program doesn't even have them do testing anymore. We just send them over to the neuromuscular clinic and they do everything right off the bat. So, we tailor our approach based on the disease and the time sensitivity and what we're able to get done and not through follow-up. But yeah, so our follow-up program on Pompe is, we contact pediatricians, tell them what's wrong, and tell them to do the cardiac evaluation as well as the enzyme and DNA testing. And then we bring families into clinic only if they need to.
Yeah, and that's just really positive to hear because, anecdotally, at least from the Pompe community side of it, there's a lot of sort of unnecessary delay, especially in the time sensitive cases. So we hear about IOPD kids not actually getting their diagnosis till a month in.
Right.
when they clearly would have done better faster, and LOPD cases not getting their NBS diagnosis until 6 to 12 months in some extreme cases, and hopefully those are the stragglers that we're getting rid of. But as you just mentioned, really sort of looking at each disease and seeing where is the time sensitivity and making sure that the procedures in place and the checkup on the procedure itself, like we're holding ourselves to the standard that we're doing it quickly enough.
Yeah, and it's been going well for us. Obviously you can never have 100% perfection. We just never achieve that with anything, but we do, I think we did a pretty good job, pat myself on the back. But we really, try to make sure our kiddos aren't delayed where they don't need to be.
Cool.
Thanks, Angela. Any other questions? I'm not sure. I don't think you and Georgia, you guys do long-term follow-up. I was just curious to see if some of the late onset cases for Pompe, do you ever get information about them having some symptoms?
Yeah, that's a really great question. We are actually doing some long-term follow-up, but not across the board and not with Pompe. But having said that, I do think our LSD group, because they're a pretty amazing group of people working in that team, I do think they are watching all this very carefully and gathering data, from what we report out in newborn screening, but also they keep their kids and watch them carefully. And I would expect some presentation/publications from them in the future to see how these all shake out. They're part of our group that I have to don't worry, they're not all going to be positive in mass droves all at the same time, right? Everybody's getting used to newborn screening because this is, fairly new for the LSDs in here, but I would keep your eyes peeled for that. I would not be surprised if they start presenting that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Average treatment start date for SMA, that is a really good question. I don't know that data exactly. I haven't gone in and looked at it. I could certainly run it. I may even be able to run it during this call. Treatment date specifically, it kind of depends on how you define that. So, if you were trying to define it by starting like gene therapy or nusinersen or something like that, I won't have that date, and that would need to come out of the neuromuscular group. There may be some early data from our pilot on that. We did submit a manuscript for publication with help me out, Jennifer.
She can help you. This was the new publication submitted to. Is this the one that was just recently submitted?
Yeah.
Keith, put it in the chat, or Keith, you're on the call.
American Journal of Medical Genetics. Oh, I'm sorry. Gosh, I'm just sitting here like, why can't I think of words? So there's a special edition coming out on research and newborn screening, and we did a joint manuscript with the neuromuscular group. It's primarily data from the pilot and then some early cases after the pilot, because there was no gap. We flowed right from our pilot into just screening for it. And they talked a lot more about that sort of detail. I'll be honest, I don't know it off the top of my head. And that data is going to be skewed somewhat from what's happening today, because like I said, we were doing things kind of the traditional way with SMA, where follow up was telling pediatricians to get diagnostic testing and then send that to us, and then we would refer, and we've kind of cut out a lot of those steps and we just refer the kids right in. So it's all happening much faster. That was a really important lesson that we learned from the pilot.
Yeah, so look forward to that. Those journal articles coming out. I think they're in the process of review now.
Incidents for SMA based on the total number screened. That's a good question. Let me do that math here super fast. We have this equals this.
So you're almost at 1 in 10. You're a little less than 1 in 10 right now.
Yeah.
For the
6.7. Yeah. Yeah. A little less than that.
Yeah, it's interesting, Dr. Parisi, because I know the New York team, theirs is a lot. I think she has, one more. If you compare the two, the incidents, so they're staying steady at 1 in 19 to 1 in 20, where it's more frequent in other states.
Yeah, all right. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna, as an offer, while you're doing some quick math there, what we're doing with the Pompeii data we've collected is showing sort of doing a binomial analysis rather than discrete state, and seeing that there definitely seems to be a sample size influence that's much bigger than the difference in demographics of states. And so if anybody has any kind of for any other condition collected data, I'm happy to help out in running that analysis. And then it ends up doing some really cool things for validating some public data sets. So if anybody's interested in that kind of thing, rather than going state by state and assuming we have actual different incidents in the states, which is not likely to be true, then yeah, I'm happy to follow up with you.
Hi, Jennifer.
Yes.
This is Bob. Hi, everyone. Did you say a moment, maybe a minute or so ago, that New York was hovering around 1 in 18 to 20,000 or something like that?
Yep, around 19 to 20. Yep.
But that's not what
Michelle, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, that's not what they published, right? The fairly recent paper was, and Michelle, maybe I'm just not remembering it correctly, but I thought it was like 1 in 28,000 or something like that.
For which one? For SMA?
For SMA.
It's been maybe at the very beginning during the pilot, it was a little bit higher, but it's really settled into about 1 in 19,000.
Okay, because the title of the paper was low something.
Yeah, that was I don't remember being that high, 1 in 28, but maybe at the very beginning it was. I'd have to go back and take a look. I know that we've looked at it recently, and there's another kind of a clinical paper coming out, and we're in that range of 1 in 19,000-ish.
Okay, so I mean, I think that the statement about what, as well, no, we'll not go there.
It's that paper was
quote my
sorry.
father, which would be a bad idea. But the punchline is compared to what? So SMA is a relatively prevalent, I would say the term birth prevalence is what the birth defects people down here use, is it up there, certainly in the range with PKU, maybe more so in Georgia, apparently more so, and all that. And as the numbers get bigger, but the number that was estimated, and the estimate was guessing, was 1 in 10,000. Anytime you hear a 1 in 10,000, or 1 in 100,000 or whatever, that they don't really know what it is. So we, Jennifer and Mary Schroth and I don't know if Mary's on the line, we've talked about trying to do a cooperative assembly of published papers and current data not yet published independently as a separate paper from a program, and see if we can get a denominator that's big enough to narrow the uncertainty and get a national estimate of birth prevalence.
I think Mary,
Robert, that's what we've done in Pompeii, and we looked at the published data, and it was around 4 million births published versus like what we expected at the time. Should have been closer to about 9 million screens. Went out and got most of that data and put it together in a way that acknowledges the statistical uncertainty of the low sample sizes. And so that was the discussion there. Be happy to share with you what we're doing on Pompeii there, and see if it's something that's interesting for other conditions.
Okay, and can you, I may have missed this earlier. I didn't dial in until you all had already started, because I forgot about it. But what was your final prevalence estimate, birth prevalence estimate for Pompeii nationwide?
We're at 1 in 18,184 as a single as a one-sided bound. That's including we know some states, their cutoff levels are a little bit low to detect all LOPD, so that's not so those would certainly move it to be slightly more higher incidence. And in some cases, some states have unresolved cases, which we followed the state's preference on those and didn't include them. But assuming that some non-zero amount of those resolve as LOPD, we'd expect that to go also in the slightly higher incidence direction. But 1 in 18 is the figure we'll publish.
Right, and that brings up an interesting question. First of all, thank you for that. 1 in 18,000, I believe, is significantly higher, a higher birth rate of affected newborns than the estimates were before. I mean, we used to get estimates of around between 1 and 5 to 10,000 for all LSD, and the individual ones were in the 1 in tens of thousands back in 15 years ago. But then the question about age add-on or the natural history of the range of natural histories when you detect at the newborn state is that data is going to have to accumulate for some time to parse all that out, of course. So did you all define an infantile onset Pompeii as a specific endpoint?
Yeah, so we broke down the data to have some different estimates for infantile versus LOPD. I would say like the one other important piece of information to what you just said is, especially for the LOPD case, where there is some body of literature out there that says, it may not have symptoms or impact people till 6th decade of life, so on. There's a corollary study that's being done at Duke that is that's doing long-term follow-up of newborn screen positives across a wide sort of a wide genetic basis. And so there's I think 4 kids in that 20-something cohort, 20-something kids cohort that have the most mild, that are homozygous for the most mild known Pompeii mutation. And even in those cases, in 100% of those kids, they are seeing features of Pompeii within the first few years of life. So this idea of a late onset, understanding and correcting any kind of old views of what is or is not disease is an equally important part of follow-up on the detection side of it.
Yeah, and with respect to the whole issue of late onset and all, I know it doesn't fit exactly in the newborn screening paradigm. But again, years ago, when we first started getting together on this with folks outside, and particularly with Ron Scott in Washington State, he made the statement point blank that the greatest beneficiary of improvement over the natural history may be in the later onset conditions. And in those days, the genotype phenotype correlation was like what, 0 or something, whatever. There wasn't much of a correlation. Then I know there's the one that's said to be late onset, but there are individual examples where late onset mutations have been seen in childhood onset for sure. So are people doing whole genome sequencing on Pompe patients to see if the variability in course can be attributed to other genomic factors than the enzyme gene itself?
Not on an NBS program level, but there are some papers out there that talk about modifier genes.
Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to take up all this time, but it's very
That's
interesting
all right.
stuff.
That's all right. Thanks for your comments, Bob. It seems like with these conditions, I know that we've, which I was going to get to, is we're a lot of more states are screening for them, but we still have a long ways to go to kind of understand birth prevalence. And if that's something, I think we were thinking about moving to some of the conditions that are now more or that are on more pilot studies, but maybe we'll continue the discussions for Pompe disease and NPS 1 and still continue to talk about the birth prevalence, because that still seems to be something that is changing in the at least in the early screening period. So, but I did want to move on. I know we're getting closer. We still 15, but wanted to move to Dr. Parad about the Brigham and Williams pilot, Duchenne pilot, hospital pilot.
Sure. Hello, Jennifer. Let me just pull up my numbers here. We are currently at sorry about that. Okay, we have screened 5,215 babies to date. 2,650 of those are male. We've had 140 samples above cutoff go to whole exome sequencing. In that 140, we've detected 3 females who carry one variant. One is a VUS, one is a definitely pathogenic deletion, and one is a duplication. Our most recent male, that 7,000 male that I spoke about the last time I was on, turned out to be negative for DMD, and we're currently in the process of getting a repeat CK. That was a difficult delivery. I also want to thank, I can't remember, it might have been Debbie who suggested pulling data on APGAR scores and C-section versus vaginal delivery. And we actually have been able to do that. I don't have the numbers for you today, but hopefully by next time I will, to see if we can, if there's some kind of correction to make for some association that we can demonstrate with a sample this size. And those are our numbers to date.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting with the DMD pilot, because it seems like the 3 or the 2 that are reporting, well, New York too, I guess, is that reported information on the call are finding a lot more things than DMD from the screening pilot. So I know your numbers are a little bit smaller, but it seems like that's what's been going on.
I mean, we do, I think there may actually be a couple of other cases I'm not even including here as a true blind well baby newborn screen. We did have a baby, I think it was in our publication, who was born with arthrogryposis, and the parents consented to the screen, and the CK was elevated and the DMD was negative, but we reflexed to the rest of the whole exome, and we did find some, I think it was a deletion on in the long arm of 16. That was a known syndrome that explained sort of all the phenotype and the elevated CK. So we've had a couple of cases where actively sort of sick babies in the NICU, I will get a phone call to say, you know, could you look for the other stuff? And then we just go back and get consent from the family to expand the analysis.
Got it. Mm-hmm. Do you have any other questions on the call? I'm trying to go through this chat, but I'm not doing a very good job today.
Well, I'll interrupt again, Jennifer, to help you
Sure.
out. I wanted to ask Richard, do you all have more than one cutoff on the CK level for the initial screen based on newborn age?
So we have two cutoffs that are based on sex, and that's based on what PerkinElmer, you know, provided. We've analyzed our data on age. Clearly, the CK goes down over the first 48 hours of life, but we haven't adjusted our cutoffs in any way. And most of our samples, I would say 98% of them are collected within the first 48 hours of life. So we haven't made any adjustments yet, but we're collecting these data to look at them in a way that I think other people have also, you know, shown that the CK goes down pretty quickly, and whether I know it's a little different from the New York algorithm, but we haven't made any changes yet to our cutoffs.
And then Dr. Friedenberg and Dr. Parisi asked about the one female case with the, I think you said duplication, either deletion or duplication. And is that, can you provide more information? Is that supposed to be, is that going to be predicted to be pathogenic?
Yeah, well, so as part of our pilot, I think I may have also mentioned this, we have set up a follow-up program with with the neuromuscular clinic at Boston Children's. And I guess we feel pretty strongly, since we don't know what to do with these females, and because they can develop later, they certainly could develop Duchenne. All three of them did have drops in their repeat CK into the normal range, but I think that doesn't necessarily mean that variant might not cause some problem down the road. And particularly there's a sort of a teen or early 20 age onset cardiomyopathy that can happen in these females. So we've opted to have them all sent to the follow-up clinic so that somebody can keep an eye on them over time, that we're not just sort of sending them out in a void, because we don't know that there's no meaning to having made that detection. It doesn't look like classic DMD because they don't have a persistent CK elevation, but it doesn't mean that it's meaningless.
And can you just remind, so for this, and remind us, you probably said this on a previous call, but are you collecting long-term follow-up data for this pilot as well?
We are not formally, we're collecting a repeat. We're attempting to get a repeat CK, and if that repeat CK is, and usually that's aimed for the 60-day norms that are available from Perk and Elmer. If that's in the normal range, we stop. And if it's above the normal range, if that repeat CK is above normal, we're referring them to the neuromuscular clinic at Children's, where they will continue to monitor them. But we've only been we haven't even been going a year, and it's still a small cohort, so we just don't have that many babies. But we will. We have all the information on all the babies that went to sequencing and all the ones that are going to be followed. And I think ultimately we will try to report some down the road, some kind of follow-up on
Information. Thank you. Do you have any other questions? Well, thank you, Dr. Parad, for your report. I'm going to move to see if any other states have any comments or items that they wanted to report out. Last month, we heard from the Michigan group. I know they're at the beginning stages of CMV screening. I believe someone from that program gave us a report on the pilot that was going on with CDC and University of Minnesota from last year, which is still enrolling. And then I also just wanted to comment and state that, for Pompe, MPS1, XALD, and SMA, we have multiple states that are currently screening for these conditions. Over half of the states are screening for these 4 conditions now. And I just wanted to get feedback from the group as far as if there's any other information that these calls can address that can help with implementation of these conditions.
Hi, it's Cindy Powell from North Carolina. I've been thinking that just hearing about how the short-term follow-up is running in different states would be helpful. I know that, some states do more as part of their newborn screening for certain conditions, and others are asking, like the primary care providers to do more of, secondary and confirmatory testing. So I've been thinking that it would be helpful to share that information if possible.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Powell. I'll make a note of that and see if we can collect some more information and think about ways we can put that on our website so others could utilize that.
Thanks.
Do you have any other comments? Well, if you have any other suggestions or if there's anything else that these calls could address as far as these newer conditions, as far as implementation for other states, please reach out to myself. You can email me or Dr. Brower, and we can add that as a discussion topic on these calls. We can also provide information on our website as well. So what we're planning on doing is for the rest of the year is starting to rotate these conditions off the call and then focus more on the conditions where there are active pilots, as well as adding in some topical discussions. I also want to give time for APHL. Is Kashia, are you still on the call to give an update on the from Do Steps?
Yes. So we are hosting a continuous quality improvement national meeting. That meeting will take place from August 10th through the 12th. So this meeting will be a hybrid event. So registration to attend the meeting in person in Washington, DC has closed, but you can still register to attend virtually. So registration for virtual attendance will open up on July 1st. So please be on the lookout for announcements regarding that.
Thank you, Kashia. And then I also hand it over to Dr. Chen to talk about the NBS TRN updates. Dr. Chen, are you still on the call?
Yeah, I'm here. Hello, everyone. So I'd like to give a couple updates about NBS Trends. So we have our podcast, which is the Newborn Screening Spotlight. Our newest episode is with Christina Meyer, who is the Senior Manager of Government Affairs at the American Society of Genes and Cell Therapy, which is located in Wisconsin. Her podcast is going to focus on the advances in gene and cell therapy and how it's enabling researchers, clinicians, families, and regulatories to work together in incredible ways to discover new ways to treat previously untreatable conditions. So definitely do check out this episode. She talks a lot about what the American Society of Gene and Cell Therapy offers, what are their new initiatives, and how they can support researchers in all the different avenues. They're very strong in their policy. Maybe if you want to advocate a specific screening, treatment, and anything that relates to gene and cell therapy, they could help amplify that voice. So definitely check out that podcast. The next slide is going to encourage everyone to register for the NBSN website. As a member, you get access to certain data tools, and you'll also be added to our mailing list, and you will receive our new NBSN newsletter. Next slide. We have our NBSN network meeting that's coming up next month, July 19th to the 20th, from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern time. And this is when we will highlight researchers that are advancing newborn screening research, specifically using some of the NBSN data tools and resources, and how we can help facilitate our work together. So definitely go on our website. You'll see that there's a link on how you can register for the website, but for the purpose of here, just please block out that time slot in your calendar. Next slide. And I guess, Jennifer, you want to just give up your
yeah, this is the and that's it for today. Our next call will be on July 7th. Our calls are every Thursday, first Thursday of the month at 2 p.m. And if you missed this, you can also check out the catch up on the calls on our YouTube channel. So that's it. Thank you guys again for joining us, and we will see you next month. Have a good one.